Intel's guidance was for the year.
Yeah.
And so we saw what I was putting together is that ASML had so many pull forward orders from China that led to their biggest quarter ever, right?
Yeah.
And SMCI is reporting they're going to have a huge quarter, but they're not reporting the full year guidance. And Intel is the first time we got to look into the full year guidance. And I think it's going to make more investors pay attention. If it pans out, realize that these banging fucking estimates for the near term are pull forward orders that are going to disappear to zero once the China ban goes into effect.
That
So
makes
that's why I
sense.
think you're seeing SMCI and NVIDIA get hit after hours on Intel. Even though I don't put them in the same category whatsoever.
Well, I'm sure AMD will give some clarity to the broader sector when they report early next week.
Yeah,
Um,
that'll be a big one.
but anyways, um, welcome in, guys. Dorit, let's roll. Mr. Wall Street Bulls, glad you guys decided to show up. We're just talking about some Intel earnings. They did not do so well. Do any of you guys have anything you guys want to check out?
Just more or less interested on the general consensus for tomorrow.
Sure, yeah. Wall Street Bull says, "What's up? Love to see it." All right, yeah. We'll do an ES outlook towards the end of the session. That's usually when we have the most people in here, and it benefits everyone. So
For sure.
definitely push the general outlook towards the end. But if you guys have any general charts or just general questions, shoot them, and we'll cover as much as we can tonight. What's going on? Let's roll. I saw you on mute, but I can't hear you.
What's your thoughts on they had today? Do you think it'll continue?
Okay.
Structurally, looks like it could go down more.
Honestly, today was the day to play it. This looks like there was something from a fundamental standpoint. I don't know that there was any news. If there is, El Sucio, I'm sure you'll let me know.
Yeah, there's news.
There was news.
Android said they were dropping. Shit got resolved. It's solid. Took play today on it was like 200%. But it's just wondering if you thought it had anything downside just because of what happened today and news, all the issues they've been having with the plane plug.
Yeah, that's obviously a big fundamental catalyst, right? That directly affects their next quarter earnings and possibly indefinitely, right? So that's definitely a fundamental catalyst that warrants a decrease in price. I think the impulse move, the knee jerk move, was obviously made today with the big gap down, and then once retail got their hands on it, they continued to sell. So today was the knee jerk move, and we even saw a little bit of a buy into the close. I think that comes in for more of a technical standpoint. Here on the chart, I've got the last 3 years of price action pulled up, and you can very clearly see that the fair value is about 240 all the way down to this 195, 196 area, right? And I'll mark this off by a big old zone so that we can see it more clearly in today's price action. Bada boom, right? So you can see this is where the fair value is, and this is right where a volume taper is. So as soon as we dipped under this area, this 200 spot, buyers were more than likely sitting with some waiting orders. All that. So from a technical standpoint, this is where liquidity drops off and where buyers are most likely going to be waiting. It's going to take a lot for them to break back under this 196 area that I've got marked. It's been respected a lot historically from both sides. It's become more of an inflection point, right? It's support when we're above it, and it's resistance when we're below it. Okay, so this is a big area. This 195 to 200, I'd say, is a pretty good spot risk to reward wise for longs. Otherwise, they've got earnings next week, early next week. So this happening so late in the quarter, right? It's very unlikely that this United news is going to have any effect on this upcoming earnings, right? And think about the most recent thing with that plane having the door blown right open, right? That has nothing to do with anything before that. All their sales prior are still existing. They're still going to go into their revenue figures. They're still going to go into, they still produce the same amount of planes, etc. So this earnings, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised if it's fairly positive. Again, I'm not making any prediction at the data. It's foolish to guess at earnings figures, but there's always that bit of anticipation where people are nervous to liquidate their positions before an earnings, and they're also nervous to buy more. So I would not say that Boeing is a market leader by any means, maybe in the industrial sector, but as for um, as for just anticipation surrounding the earnings, I feel like it may not be the best to play into the upcoming spot or into the upcoming week. Well, what I was going to say is this area, as we just discussed, this 195 to about 200, in my opinion, like I said, it's the best risk to reward long on the chart. Unless we're talking down here at the 120s, right, where there's another volume tapering where we've seen support, I don't think you're getting a better opportunity risk to reward wise for an entry other than right here. You know, let me mark this off a little bit differently. So 195 to 200, 195 to 200, boom, and see this is the area I'm talking about. I don't think there's a better risk reward entry than this zone. So if you are looking to play it, maybe with like a month of time, I do think that you can get a good quality move off of this, especially considering the earnings isn't pricing in any of that, right? The earnings is not going to be pricing in this United data. It the recent effect of the plane malfunctions is not going to be priced into this, right? The last 3 months of data and in sales and revenue is going to be completely unrelated. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing pop right back into this, 215 to 220 area off of a half decent earnings. So I think this area is the best spot if you want to play it safe and just buy equity and hold it for a month or two, or if you want to play, what contracts would I like? Probably like March, maybe these like March 220 calls. I think this could be a solid play. These 220 or 215 calls could be a solid play. So if you were to do anything with it, that's probably what I would pick. Yeah, of course. What's going on, AS82? How's your night going? Good, how about you?
You talk about that Intel, it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Plays we had,
Well, we were just talking about this. So, apparently they gave. No, you're good. You're good. It was before you got in here. Apparently they gave some pretty negative guidance. For the earnings. Giving like a full year outlook, and then El Sucio also mentioned that one thing that people are kind of a little weary for, in regards to the chip sector, is that there's a ban on exports to China, which has not gone into effect yet. So a lot of the earnings, you'd have to take a deeper dive into the fundamentals to see how much of their revenue is in regards to the exports to China. Um, but if it is a big segment of their business, that is something to definitely be cautious for and could be a very valid reason for why Intel is giving poor guidance. Um, if anything, from a technical perspective, one thing that I was looking at is this area right here, right? This has kind of been, when we broke out, kind of saw some buyers here at this 45 area. We gapped down, bought it up again and again. So I'm going to draw a little zone right here. Looking at it after hours, it does look like it already kind of broke it down. I just kind of want to go like this, just a rough little sketch. And then we'll check back. Yeah, so they cut right through that. Sellers are definitely back in control. Yeah, so from here, there's a little bit of a volume taper at this 43 spot. It looks like that's where they ended up catching it. If anything, I think the move might have been a little overdone, right? If we want to mark this same spot out. I personally think this move might have been a little overdone, especially with a lot of the rest of the semi sector yet to report, right? We're still waiting for reports from AMD, Nvidia, and SMCI, which are primarily the leaders in the sector. Obviously Intel is moving off of its own data and own predictions for the upcoming quarters. But if AMD and Nvidia report, I have no doubt that other names in that sector can continue to find strength. From here, right, it's obvious that sentiment has flipped. We've made a new low, or a new relative low under our previous support, a big one, and a large volume taper. If you are looking for continued sentiment, I think that your best area to short is just waiting for a retest of this area. So 45.50 up to about 46. Let me just mark that off super clean for you. Up to 46. Extend that out for a few days. Right, so this spot right here, if we do end up seeing some sort of pop, right, it looks like buyers are already trying to step back in. Let's look at the short term. Actually, not really. They've still just been fading it. Yeah, this is rough.
Back. So if those other chip names right now register, because they're all feeling it really significantly.
Yeah,
These down a lot. Nvidia's down $10. Like they're getting it.
yeah, they definitely are. They're definitely feeling it. AMD, Nvidia, SMCI is not really faded too much, to be honest. Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, obviously the sector is, at these highs, everyone's kind of on edge a little bit, If you're holding equity, there's kind of that increased volatility and that uncertainty, right? Everyone's kind of like in the back of everyone's head, they're thinking, I know I should be taking profits, but the trend's not over. So with Intel kind of being the first one to give some poor outlook and poor guidance and kind of inverse the sentiment of the sector, it could definitely be scaring people. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure.
Sorry, if you were to play puts, would you allow maybe like a couple of weeks, or would you play tomorrow expiration dates?
Definitely not tomorrow. Intel doesn't move like that, unfortunately. Intel just has a very low ADR, and to me, like with options, intrinsic value is extremely important. So you want something like Nvidia that will move, dollars, right? Intel moves cents, and with options, you just have to play deep in the money, and even then, if you get a 1% move on Intel and a 1% move on Nvidia, and you're in same day contracts, you're going to make way more with options on a name like Nvidia rather than Intel, simply because of the intrinsic value that is being moved, the amount of dollars. That's what contracts are based on, right? So unfortunately, I don't think Intel is the best same day play. I wouldn't, Of course, there's always the possibility of like a post earnings follow through. Like once retail gets their hands on this tomorrow, they may want to keep selling it. But I just think if it's going to be a sector wide move, you'd have better luck with Nvidia or AMD, right? And the only reason I say that is purely because of the stock price, right? When we're playing options, we're focused on the intrinsic value. So you want something that, if, like I said, the example I made was if they both move 1%, the options on Nvidia are more than likely going to make much more simply because they'll move more dollars in the money. So, yeah, I still like the idea of shorts, but again, I think your best area to risk off of, if you see some sort of sympathy move, this high 45 into 46 area is the spot that I would be willing to risk shorts against. And then your targets would probably be this 43.5 area, and then these pivot lows. But that's a massive move here. If you're looking at this, it's already down 10% after hours. From 50 down to 45, it's already down 10% plus. A move down to the 41 area would be approaching a 20% sell off on earnings. And that's, I don't know if that's entirely warranted, just from some minor, again, I don't know how big or how severe this China ban is going to affect their business, but for now, just looking inwards, I don't think this warrants a 20% decline in price. I feel like, they could open up tomorrow and forget all about it and be like, oh, semis are still strong. I like it still. This is a discount. Do you have numbers?
like million in revenue. Let me pull it up quick. The thing that stood out the most is the EPS, but sometimes that's not comparable.
Okay,
But let me pull it up. Give me just a minute.
sure.
Guides for a Q1 EPS of 13 cents on revenue of 12.2 to 13.2 billion versus analyst consensus of 0.32 cents, revenue of 14.2 billion.
Would you mind posting it like
$1 million right now.
would you mind posting it in Stock Talk? It's just hard to visualize the numbers. Appreciate you.
First.
Okay, let's see. Intel guides for Q and EPS was 0.13 on revenue of. Oh yeah, there's a pretty big guide down. Shoot.
20% is a huge move. It's not like Intel hasn't moved 20% on earnings before.
I'll be honest with you, I just haven't been paying much attention to this name over the past couple years.
Not a lot of people have, and so it got real beaten down, and it got to a value area. But I mean, when it started getting beaten down, it was a 20% plus move on an ER a while back.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, this just makes me think like we gotta just kind of give it time, because like I said, I'm not super confident that you could play it with ZODTs tomorrow. Um, yeah, it's just a tough one, honestly.
The life's very DT. I've never been a big fan of zero DT. They don't touch like a real hard momentum because, like Wax said, like 1% move, which is significant, is only 40 cents. Strikes are 50 cents apart. So
Yeah, whereas a 1% move on, whereas a move on Nvidia, a 1% move is $6 right now. $6 is like, I think that might be 2.5 strikes. On Nvidia. Oh, they're $5 now. I'm still thinking of when we were in the 500s. At least $6 is a full strike.
Something warrants it. Predicted from here.
Yeah. How's Nasdaq doing after hours? Are they? You think we're gonna see a gap down? We should if Nvidia and all of them are moving down.
I mean, they were down last time I looked. QQQ was.
Oh wow, yeah, they are. They're down a good bit. Okay.
Everything's feeling it, and something you said, SMCI is not feeling it that much. Like, what a world do we live in when an $8 move on SMCI?
Well, it's a $475 stock.
No, it's
Didn't used to be. Yeah. All right. Wall Street. I saw your message. You want to talk about SMCI? Here we are. So I posted a plan play on it. Obviously, when I posted it, Intel had not reported yet, and we were still up here at 75. My play still stands. Honestly, they have yet to report earnings, and the whole reason they're up here in the first place is last week they gave some massive increases to their upcoming earnings in terms of expectations. So I personally think that there's a good chance we can still see a pop higher leading into that earnings. The reason I liked it is because, we made our impulse move, we digested it. Every dip was bought back with force, as you can see. We kind of made a blow off top, and today we spent all of that action, pretty much, in a tight band of consolidation, right? If you look at today's action, it got really tight, continuing to fight this 480 area, all within an inside day. So this to me just screams price acceptance. Yes, you can make the argument for sell pressure, but dips are still being aggressively bought. So I think there's still a chance that leading into the earnings, I believe it's Monday or Tuesday night, we can see a continuation move. So my play is still very much valid here. It just matters with if we're already down to 64 or 65, it looks like. So we're already down here, you know. Um, this is where we are currently, and check this out. Isn't that funny how it's also the spot where we've kind of been finding buys, you know? If we defend this same area, right, where the gap up was, where we've bounced twice since, we're still range bound and we're still defending the highs. So in my opinion, I think SMCI is still very strong, and if we see a push through 4080, I think it's a clear shot into the pivot highs, and we might as well see a blow off to new highs as we've kind of seen before. Again, it's a lotto idea, so it's low risk, or it's extremely high risk. Again, I'm not gonna just jump in off the open. I'm gonna want to see it push and see some strength over 480. So, that's what we're looking for here. But that's extremely short term. That's talking about the next day or so. Literally just into tomorrow. Um, as for bigger picture, I don't even want to try and make any guesses following the earnings or pre-earnings. So yeah, it just depends how the earnings goes. I personally think, as for the earnings, they've definitely got ahead of themselves, 100%. Um, they increased guidance. If I remember correctly, the increased guidance was about 18 to 22% increase in expectations. They're up over 40%, right? So we've more than shot through the expectations. At this point, we're just pricing in future growth. So, you know, I think it's more than likely we see a sell reaction off the actual earnings. And I wouldn't be long on it in any sense with equity, with options, with anything. I wouldn't be holding long-term longs. The call position that I'm talking about is purely for tomorrow, expecting that anticipation for these earnings remains high. That's it. I'm looking to capitalize on a 1-day move. Um, but as for the earnings, I think they've gotten way too far ahead of themselves. And even if they do report the upper end of those expectations, I think it's likely that we're still going to end up pulling this thing back just because we've gotten ahead of ourselves and we have priced in some pretty ambitious, growth goals. So again, I hope that clarifies a little bit that we are not ultra mega bullish at these prices. We're looking for a 1-day move here, and that's it. We're not looking to see we're not looking to see strength over 500, keep it running into next week. That's not the case at all. What did you say? Cool, thanks. I'll keep that in mind going into tomorrow. Yeah, sounds good, man. All right. Yeah, so, man, enough of the semis. Anyone else got anything they want to look at? Or just any general questions?
Can we stay in this space and look at AVGO?
Sure. Wow. We looked at this one last week, didn't we? Yeah, big
Yeah, we
engulfing.
did, and I thought it was really ready to break down, and then SMCI dropped that guidance upgrade. But these last two candles are intense.
Yeah, that's a massive gap and dump.
Yeah.
Massive gap and dump today.
This being down after hours. I mean, I'm looking at this tomorrow for sure, because it can move $20 in a day easy, or not even being like a huge move.
I think the first spot you should look for is this 1150 spot. I think downside is not a bad bet here. They don't have earnings for a long time. They're going to be heavily swung by yeah, they're gonna be heavily swayed by, events in the space. Um, the technical structure is clearly weak. Big old gap and dump already today, and then they're down after hours off the news. This is probably the better short candidate for that space.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually thinking about taking a look at it for 0 DP. Would you, if you zoom in, would you think about a 1200 risk against?
This guy right here, the only volume shelf we've got on this chart. Um, the lower end of this, so pops into this 15 area. Let's go 15 down to about 10. So this $5 range right here is probably best in my mind. I'm gonna tighten it up here in a sec. I'm just gonna get the zone right. Stretch that out to the 31st. Boom. And then I'm gonna fine tune this to about 10 days. Yeah, that's perfect. It's right there. And then we're gonna turn after hours off. That's about as clean as it gets. Okay. So lucky for us, everything below this is just pretty much single prints. I mean, we're on a 5 minute. It doesn't get thinner than that. So depending on where we open, I see it's kind of dancing around, that 15 area right now. So we could open above this and we could see an immediate buy reaction. But otherwise, if you see weakness under 10, that's probably your sign to get in, you know. Or if we open under, look for a morning pop into this spot and then short against it. But this is the area to play, in my opinion. This 10 to 15 area is the biggest chunk of volume that we've left on this chart on the way up. And it's where buyers are going to be sitting to either pick it back up or kind of release the floodgates for a clear up of these massive single prints. And you like the 1200 contracts? I'll tell you what, these are going to be a lot more expensive at open.
No, I played AVGO on a Friday a few times, and it can definitely move, right? Because
Uh,
a 0.5% is still 6 bucks. But I tend to look more about kind of like just relative value on where they're pricing after they open, because they change a lot day by day for sure. And I don't know that they would be that much more expensive.
well, they're gapping down like 15 bucks. These
Yeah,
contracts move them 3 strikes closer.
I see them in the morning, and
All right, I'm gonna give you an
anyway, it's going to
estimate.
depend on what the price is versus how much the contracts are. What I take, but 1200 would be my target.
Those are definitely the best contracts to take. The most volume, best open interest. These are definitely the contracts to play if you're gonna play it. I think it's a solid idea. I think it's good.
Yeah,
I'm with it.
stuff.
I'm a fan.
I'm not another I'd like to look at, but I mean, earnings may completely remove the structure.
Sure.
But I know we've looked at this before. ALGN. That is about as clean a head of shoulders as it comes.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna break either direction before earnings. I don't, because they're not. It's like dental work. I don't know anything about the dental sector.
Had some news out of Europe or something that sent them, gapping all the way back up after the really horrible earnings last time. But I've been feeling this overdone for weeks.
It definitely does. I mean, bigger picture, if we look at a weekly, I'm sure there's sell pressure here. Actually, that doesn't look half bad. That actually looks pretty good, if I'm being honest.
That was the news week. That was the European stuff.
Yeah, this structure doesn't look terrible on a weekly, but the main thing that I'm concerned about is that it's just gonna stay range bound until earnings, and then after earnings, you'll see a gap over 290 or a gap back down and into 220. I feel like there's no in between unless you
The structure kind of is meaningless, but it's just so clean.
yeah, exactly. Um, I do think there's definitely a play here if earnings wasn't a thing. I do think, yeah, weakness back just sustained under 255 would be a really confident short. Um, and you're risking against the volume taper here. It's no surprise that 280 is where sells were stepping in, right? Um, yeah, it's one of those things. Like I have a love-hate relationship with earnings season because it's like you find a beautiful setup and I start to write a play plan on it, and then I see right as I'm about to post it that they have earnings this week, and the contracts are unplayable, you know? And then and then the other half of that is yeah, and then the other good part is, well shoot, earnings provides excess, volume, which provides great plays. So I love waiting. I love the aftermath of earnings, but I don't like waiting for a name to be done with earnings. But anyways, I would imagine this thing probably just stays range bound leading into it. They don't really have a reason to move. And again, I'm unknowledgeable in the dental sector. I don't know if I would call them a tech company or not. They've got technology in their name, but are they really a tech company?
Promise you call themselves a tech company. But no,
100%. 100%. They want to be listed in the Nasdaq. But fun name. Definitely a fun name to trade. I wish it had more volume, honestly.
you wanna-
Because look at these
Yeah.
contracts, dude.
wanna look at one more?
Sure.
It's a longer play. Archer Daniels Midland ADM, to be confused with AMD. I need you to back way out.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate. Damn, if you asked me about this chart a year ago, I would have loved it. So what was this news about? Because this wasn't earnings. What was this drop off about?
Accounting issue. Yeah, it was accounting issues.
Ooh, that's not good.
If you go way back, like this is the reason I'm looking at it here is because if you see all the way back where the broke out to the all-time high, and then ran, right? Yeah, right there, that level. I had been watching that level for months, and I played against it. I bought like a month, like a week before it finally broke that level out to the all-time highs. And I had an amazing play, right? And I
I'll
did
be
huge on it, and then I moved on because it's not like a name I love. It first came on my radar because they were building the largest black fly farm in the world, I think, in Chicago, which is like the most protein per square inch you can possibly get for animal feed. Anyway,
bro.
it's
Hold
all
on,
the way back to that area, and it's slightly below.
dude. I was gonna say
And
this.
a few days since the news,
This is beautiful.
it just is breaking down. Yeah.
If this
It-
dips under
it's
50, I need
right.
you to max bid this thing. If this dips under 50, I need you to start buying equity and start building out that long portfolio because this is the best name you've showed me. If they can handle these discrepancies in their accounting, they're fine. And I imagine it's nothing because guess what? They've been increasing their dividend and consistently paying out higher dividends for the better part of 10 plus years. The further I look back,
Yeah.
they've continuously increased their dividend every year, right? Well, actually 10, 10, 13, 13, 14, 15, 16. Dude, yeah, they've been increasing their dividend every year. And you're right, they're at a spot where their valuation is kind of absurd. Let me look at some of what they Oh my god, and they've got a logical PE at this price. Okay, I need their shares outstanding to refresh. Come on. Show me how many shares they have. Anyways, EPS substantially growing, book value growing, free cash flow and a little dip off last year, but growing. Sales per share is skyrocketing. Dude, this is a great company. This is a great company. I've never even heard of them. What do they do?
Yeah, no, that they're like animal feed. They're like a staple of the food sector.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably gonna buy some. I'm gonna set some fills for under 50 because first of all, you're right. This technical area is great. If this thing dips, like, 40, 50 to 48, that's such a clean buy, especially on a name like this, as and their earnings are consistently solid. Like $2 a share for a $70 stock, bro. They're raking in cash. They're killing it. I think this is great. Were you looking to long this? I hope you were looking to long this. Don't tell me you were trying to short this thing.
It's just no. I was looking at if you zoom in. So since the drop, right, the last couple days, they tried to balance above the bottom of the drop, and today they broke below it.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking for like kind of where is the floor, where it really finds those buyers, and it might be right here. They might buy it back up tomorrow because this is good value, but I'm more looking slightly lower for that long term long.
I like it. Like I said, dips under 50, I'm probably a buyer. If you're looking to start building a portfolio and you want to diversify, this is a really solid name, and I think these prices are egregious, especially for their earnings and you know for they're basically a dividend aristocrat or damn near. You know, if you had showed me this same stock a year ago, I'd be like, bid the hell out of this 70 area. You know, seeing the massive taper down here and how many times they saved it. Shit, I'm happy you didn't show me it because that would have sucked to get that news. But I would have been a buyer at 72. I would have been a buyer up here as well. Of course, you can't foresee that kind of stuff, and an accounting error is always something that kind of raises the hair on your back. But you know, um, I think this is a discount.
That's why I think there might be more short term downside because as you go deeper into the cracks in the kitchen, you just go purchase kind of thing.
That could be the case. I would hate to find out that this is accounting discrepancies because, dude, they're paying out dividends like crazy. And that last increase, dude, that last increase was that 5 is 12%. 12% was a
Yes.
that increase in their dividends too. Like they're paying so much. The yield on this thing at these prices, dude. Let me do some quick math. So they're 51.40 right now. 45 times 4, 1.8 divided by. Yeah, dude, it's like a damn near 4% yield at these prices. Like you're getting a solid dividend name here and likely a very strong internal company. I just don't understand how you could mess up that bad with some sort of accounting issue. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I hope that you pick up some equity because I probably will be. This is a name where I will probably post it in the equity pickups channel. I dig it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, just a little more color on the accounting stuff. So they're looking into the accounting practices and that may have fudged the numbers basically on their reporting.
Okay.
So there's no like if they're going to have to restate and what those restatements would be, and I think that's why you're seeing uncertainty. But regardless, they're in a range where they were trading for like 5 years, 6 years, and they're an expanding staple of the food sector. And I really, like I said, it got on my radar with that Black Fly Factory, and that's unintended, I guess, but it's a cash cow.
Yeah. Oh, what's going on, nerd? Pooh Bear? How you guys doing? You guys got anything you want to look at? Anything at all? Don't be shy, guys. You guys can tag me in the chat as well. You either don't have a mic or don't want to talk.
Have another,
Ducio.
Yes.
ZS. All right. All right. After ZS, we'll go into the market outlook to read. Okay. ZS. What do you like about it? What are you trying to do here?
I have played this several times on these small gap fills, and they tend to take about 5 to 7 days to fill those gaps when they formed a little air gap from a few days ago. They filled every single one on the whole uptrend, right? But they fill them, and when they fill them same day. So I'm looking at it. I'll be watching it intraday, but if it starts to make the move, I want to be ready. So I just wanted to get your eyes on it.
How about this time?
Tomorrow or plan to sometime.
This gap didn't get filled. They dipped it, saved it. This gap kind of got filled, but they dipped it, saved it.
Yeah, I got filled.
This one was a fake
But
out.
the target is only that gap.
This guy.
Yeah, that's it. That's the target.
It's a big
Yeah,
move. Big
just a
move.
day trade, but on the same day when they start to move.
Yeah, you're at the spot, I guess.
Right now.
Yeah, your gap range is 237.5. Okay. This could be interesting. It's personally not one of my favorites. I don't think the volume is that great on these contracts. Yeah, it's not great. It's all right. It ain't all that. Let's see. I don't know. I like your target area. If I was shorting it, I'd be looking for the same spot, honestly. It's just I feel like this name doesn't move like that. I feel like it doesn't give super clean intraday moves. You're right, it does just gap a lot. So what's your play if it gaps down to 35? Say it opens at 35 tomorrow. 36.
On a morning into
High 37.
or weekend report. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. Are you against just playing it with time? I feel like you'd have a lot better luck with just grabbing a swing rather than banking on the move being in one day.
Up times that I've played this, I have not enjoyed playing it with time, and I have enjoyed day trading it. So
Okay.
it's a tricky one, man. I just want to get your eyes on it.
Yeah, I haven't paid much attention to Zscaler. I remember we looked at it back in October though, and we nailed it. You know, you remember that? I remember I remember going over this with you. That's why I've got these drawings here. This is the whole reason we went over it. I was like, it was up here, and you're like, what do you think? And I was like, shit, if it dips into this spot, it's a long. These two lines, I remember drawing this top of the volume taper, retested the breakout. I was like, this is your guy. They had one or two fake out days here, but if you had held from this dip, man, was that a good swing. Holy shit, it's done 160 to 240? Oh my god, bro. I didn't realize they did that much. Wow. That's actually
60 to 240 after doing 8 to 140.
yeah. Jeez, dude.
It's fucking insane. 18 months.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Wow. I'm kind of fumbling a little bit now that I'm looking back at it. I didn't realize they moved like that. I'm sitting here looking at this. I'm looking at this ADR, looking at like these days and stuff, and I'm like, it doesn't really move like that. I didn't realize each one of these days are, this one here is just 19 to 24. It's a $5 day. I didn't realize they moved like that. Huh. Maybe I'll.
It moves like that, and it feels.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye on it. I'll check back in on it every now and then. Nerd DM, he said, I'm just trying to take everything in. It's a lot. It's all confusing. I get that, man. Yeah, definitely getting into trading is a little bit overwhelming at times. But if you have any specific questions, that's what these sessions are for. If you have, um, try to be specific in your questions just so we can kind of hone in on a topic. It's hard for me to answer something like how do you look for entries? Like something like that is a very broad question and we could honestly talk about it for hours. But if you have something just general like, why is EPS important? Or, you know, it's just something a little more fine-tuned for the session, we'd be happy to, break it down and answer it to the best of my ability. Okay. Don't let it be intimidating. We try to be as, inclusive to new people as we can. And you're definitely welcome in here. So don't get scared away if it's a little complex. We do cover a lot of complex topics and kind of go more in depth, but it's always nice to kind of revert back to the basics a little bit. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more elementary questions. Okay. All right, Dorit, let's cover that general outlook. Does that sound good? And we'll wrap this session up with a nice chill.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So ES gapped up off of positive GDP data. I believe the report was that uh, the economy has grown 3.3% year over year, which is faster than we had expected. So economy is strong, which is like a backhanded positive report because on one hand it means people are staying employed, businesses are still growing, etc., etc. That's the positive. But on the negative is it means fighting inflation is going to remain hard, and it's very unlikely. It just pushes our time frame back on when we're supposed to get back to 2% inflation, right? It just means that it's probably going to be a little bit longer than we expected to get back to 2%. So it's got its positives and it's got its minuses. It's not a fully bullish read, but the initial knee jerk reaction you can see this morning was we ranged all night very tight. As soon as we got the data, we got a big pump, and then we spent most of the day chopping around until we started to fade that close. And then right into the end of the day, once we tested that value area, we ended up getting a pop. However, we very much hit a wall, right? This 49.25 area has been a struggle zone for the past 2 days. It's where we've seen sellers step in 3 times now. Again, looking at the daily structure, you wouldn't really tell that anything's wrong. And honestly, there's not. With it being Friday tomorrow, I think we could very easily buy this right back and close all-time highs. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. But coming into tomorrow, if you are going to be bullish, you're going to want to see some strength over this 25 area. Again, looking just more broad. We've only seen a little bit of struggle at one area. We haven't made a lower high yet. The most recent low was the 75 area, and now it's this 95. Wait. Yeah, 75, then 95. As long as we're above 95 here, there's really no reason to be looking for any aggressive shorts unless you're just risking against the pivot highs. Again, we may see a little bit of a gap down thanks to this sentiment shift in the semis sector. I know for a fact Nasdaq's probably going to be a little bit weak. Let's check back in on them. Yeah, they're definitely a little bit weaker. This is a different chart. This is a completely different chart than ES, right? ES closed at high a day, whereas Nasdaq got a big old wick down, and you can argue that there was a pivot here. So I think sentiment is going to be pretty rough in the tech sector tomorrow. Could definitely be a little bit tricky if futures are trying to stay green, and meanwhile you've got leading tech names such as Nvidia and AMD that are struggling to stay afloat. Bigger picture, way zoomed out, the trend is still bullish, right? There's nothing wrong here. We recently went for a breakout from a range that we spent 3 weeks in previously, and ES is very much continuing that range. There's no reason to think that we've hit a top quite yet on ES. Nasdaq is a different story, but Nasdaq is a more fine-tuned sector, right? Primarily based of tech. We're at all-time highs, so there's not really any targets from here. We pretty much have to wait until we see some sort of, either internal positioning change, whether it be through GEX or skew, which shows large position hedging, right? So if we start to see less people, it's a weird inverse topic, but if we start to see more people hedging at the highs, that's probably going to continue to fuel upside. Whereas if we see less hedging, there is more incentive for the markets to catch people off sides and see some downside. So there's a few internals that we can focus on. Hoosier likes to look at the GEX, which he's been calling out the 5200 area for a long time over the past like week, saying that that's a logical target for this leg up right now. Um, if you look at some of the recent trends after a consolidation period on ES, it typically moves about 20 to 30 points, right? This was from 415 to basically 439. That's about a $22-23 move. The next one here, we went from 4,400 up to about 455. That's a 15-point move. This one's a little bit different just because this was the contract roll. You can't fully quantify it. So let's just go from here. This one was from 466 up into 484. That's about a 17 or 18-point move, right? So now we're breaking out. We're going from 484 and we're only at 492. So we're only $6 in or $8 in right now. Wait, 84, 92. Okay, so yeah, we're only about 6 points into the move. If this leg is going to continue to see normal trends that we've become accustomed to, the ES can easily see another 100 points higher, up into this 5,000, if not higher. So he's been using GEX to kind of pick out that target. Again, I have to look back at skew. I haven't checked it in. Frankly, it's been like a month. But internal positioning and hedging amongst institutions. If it's low still, then it's very likely that we can, continue higher. So there's that. There's the internal factors, and then the external is if we start to see see some sell pressure, right? So an example of that would be if you see a period of days that look like this, right, where we close high, the next day's red, and we continue to contest a spot but can't get through it. That's a pretty good sign of a pivot. We saw that follow through here. Another good sign of some sell pressure. Honestly, like these 5 days, I would have argued that these 5 days was a good day of a good period of sell pressure, but I believe this was a week leading into CPI. So, sure enough, we didn't really see any follow through on that. But there's a lot of things that we can look for to start to expect some sort of market rollover. And right now, none of those factors are really present. So I believe, this minor bump in the road for tech could be a factor. However, with the major names still to report, I mean, let's think about this too. Forget the semiconductors, right? We know that Nvidia is a major market leader at this point, having a valuation of over $1.5 trillion now, which is crazy to even say, considering their revenues and profits and figures. But Apple is yet to report. Microsoft is yet to report. Meta's next week. Google, Amazon. You've still got 5 out of the Magnificent Seven that haven't even reported yet. Right? That's a
Oh, sorry. Speaking of which, after this, could you check out Meta?
yeah. I threw it up for a plan play. If you want to check that out.
Yeah, I'll take that.
But we've still got 5 out of the 7 yet to report. So anticipation into tomorrow and early next week is still going to be high. I don't think anyone is going to sell off into those earnings. It seems very unlikely. So while we may see a little bit of turbulence, I don't think the bull trend is over. I'm definitely not calling any sort of top right now. It could be soon. It could be in 2 weeks, it could be in a month, it could be in 3 months. But there's really nothing chart wise, internal wise, or just environment wise that makes me think that the bull market should be over right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Granted, I'm talking a lot about charts from a technical perspective. and company earnings wise, right? That's been the main focus of this. El Sucio, just to scratch that itch for you, I'm very much aware that, we're in an election year. We are currently engaged in, there's a few big wars going on right now. We're still fighting inflation. There's some unwinding in, bank debt that is still kind of struggling. Rates are still high, right? I know there's a lot economy wise and government wise that is not great, but if the chart looks good, the chart looks good. I'm not gonna be the one to fight it. So I do think there will be a time when something breaks, but trying to catch that type of move for a day trade or a short period swing, it's going to bite you every time. The way that I'm prepared for something like that is with just long-term shorts, and I started small and I've slowly been kind of adding into them as we push highs. Um, I'd say I have probably about a third or probably not even half of what I plan to position in long-term shorts, right? So that's kind of my longer term outlook. Again, I don't think the bull run's going to go forever. And when we do correct, I know Mo is called for a 10% plus correction. Hoosier's calling for a little over 20%. Hoosier's looking all the way at, Hoosier's me personally, I think we've got a long way to go down. I think bigger picture, we're going to end up seeing this like 415, 420 area again. I think that's my final target for downside. I know Hoosier thinks this 46 area is guaranteed. Um, that's like his first major downside target. Mo has, his 10% estimate puts us at about 4,500. Um, Another major spot is this 435 area. I think this is a big area as well that'll put up a lot of fight. So yeah, I for sure am expecting some major correction in the market in the next year, maybe year and a half. But trying to get in front of that with short dated options or even trying to call top, it's foolish. You're gonna get bit and your contracts are gonna get destroyed. It's not worth it. Um, I've learned extensively through the past 3 years that trying to nail pivots is not the way to go. If you think something's overvalued, just buy plenty of time and be ready to continue allocating. So don't start heavy, right? Get your exposure, get the exposure that you want because it can happen at any time. It can happen tomorrow, it can happen in a month, it can happen in a year, right? So get the exposure that you want or get the exposure, but be ready to accumulate more, right? If you have $10,000 that you want to end up putting in long-term shorts, don't put 10,000 on tomorrow, right? Put maybe 1,000 or 1,500 on. We break another 10, 15 points higher, maybe add another 500. If we break 100 points higher and ES hits 5,000, maybe put on another 2K, right? Slowly accumulate that position. Because imagine how shitty you'd be feeling if you were right here and you were like, okay, we just rocketed for a month and we're all the way back at the pivot highs that we rejected. And, the high from March 2022, this has got to be the spot. Risk to reward wise, I would have said it was solid, but you would have been out of those really quick, right? And imagine if you're still trying to allocate now, you'd be in some serious pain. So again, trying to call the pivot, it's near impossible, right? So that's how I approach it again. But short term, as for the next week, month, maybe not even month, but at least next week, I don't think there's a reason to be overly bearish. If anything, I think you should still look at dips as discounts and look to continue playing short term longs. Does that make sense, Dorit? All right. Okay. Well, that's my general outlook. We covered a lot of good names today, mostly just a technical session, but again, you guys know if there's anything else you guys want to look at or just anything on a whim, short, small questions or whatever, each and every one of you can always just shoot me a DM and I'll be able to get back to it as soon as I can. But anyways, I've got some basketball games to watch and some gambles to make. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. I'm gonna wrap up the session here. Thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate you guys. It's really motivating to know that you guys look forward to these sessions and put your education as a priority. So let's come into tomorrow with a fresh head and get ready to close this week off with a high note. Hope you guys have a good night. Yeah, you guys have a good one.
Mitch.
All right. Later guys. Oh, also, these videos will be posted on the YouTube. If you want to review old sessions, they're all titled with what we primarily covered during the session. If you guys want to review those, our link to our YouTube is posted in the socials page, or you can just search up Bullprint on YouTube. But anyways, you guys have a great rest of your night. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm heading out.